Well, welcome to the Botanical Medicine Study Course with me, your host and instructor for the online Botanical Medicine Study Course. And my name is Stephanie Georgieff. At the time of the posting of this current episode, we are in March, which is Women's History Month. And in a few days, it's going to be International Women's Day. So, for the next few episodes, I will be focusing on plants and herbs that facilitate women's health at different stages of their lives. So, for this week's Herb of the Week, we'll be exploring a plant who has quite the good reputation and is a gift from the Americas with centuries of successful use by Native Americans, which actually they used it for things that we still use it for today. And it's called black cohosh. Now, black cohosh has several Latin binomials. And for the longtime subscribers, you know I'm always kind of a stickler. You got to learn your Latin names for your plants. But black cohosh, if you do a literature or study search, will have two names. And one, which I never knew, is Astaceae racemosa, and the one I learned was Cimicifuga racemosa. And this is a vintage botanical drawing from Kew Gardens. Now, black cohosh is a member of the buttercup family and is a perennial plant native to North America. And it's native to Eastern North America from the extreme south of Ontario to central Georgia. And west, it goes all the way out to Missouri and Arkansas. And it grows in a variety of woodland habitats and is often found in small openings, like little teeny patches of sunlight in wooded areas. Now, the name of this plant I learned, as I said, is Cimicifuga, but amongst those very dedicated botany taxonomists, it can get complicated. And I always said I'd like to be in the pitch meetings or the panel discussions when they come to figure this out. Now, to be honest, I've only seen the word cimicifuga in terms of the Latin binomial, specifically on herbal products. But if you ever go to any sort of botany convention, I don't want you to be laughed out of the room if you're not familiar with the term, which I'm having trouble pronouncing, Astaceae racemosa. So however you want to pronounce that, good for you. So, for all of you people who want to be contestants on Jeopardy or winners at Trivial Pursuit, here is the reason there are two Latin binomial classifications for black cohosh. Carl Linnaeus, that famous 18th century Swedish physician and biologist for whom we can thank or blame, depending on how you look for it, is for creating the system of plant identification and taxonomy on the basis of morphological characteristics. What he did was he looked at how the plant flowers and the seeds, and he placed black cohosh for a Latin name in the species of the genus Astaceae. This designation was later revised by true name Thomas Nuttall, a lesser known but apparently quite powerful in terms of plant nomenclature English botanist and zoologist who lived and worked in the United States for about 40 years in the early 1800s. He reclassified the species to the genus Cimicifuga. Nuttall's classification was based solely on the dry follicles produced by black cohosh, which are typical of the species in the Cimicifuga genre. However, Recent data from morphological and gene phylogeny analysis demonstrates that black cohosh is more closely related to the species of the genus Astaceae rather than to other Cimicifuga species. This has prompted the revision to Astacea racemosa as originally proposed by Linnaeus. Usually on bottles of herbal medicine, black cohosh, you will see the word Cimicifuga. So I'll leave it up to the taxonomy people to fight over this. Now, on a more relatable level, the historical names for this herb can include snake root, black bugbane, which I think that would be a neat name for either a racehorse or a punk band. And it was given this name in reference to the unpleasant odor of the flowers, which render it repellent to insects. That's why it's the bane of bugs. Rattleweed, macrotis, and rheumatism weed, which is a big hint as to what it has been used for. Now, black cohosh is an herbaceous perennial plant that produces large compound leaves. This means a lot of leaves on one little stem. And the plant has a very prolific underground rhizome. And the plant can reach up to almost 10 feet. Now, the base leaves can grow up to 3 feet or 1 meter long, which is, it's a big plant. And it's long and broad, which forms the repeated seeds of the little leaflets that go up. And these leaves have a coarsely toothed, serrated margin. Now, the wildflower, which is kind of in this cone thing, has, and that's not a botanical term, sorry, it has small plumes of star-shaped white flowers that can soar up to 8 feet tall, 2.5 meters. But more commonly, it's anywhere from 4 to 6 feet tall. The flowers are produced in late spring and early summer, and the flowers have no petals or sepals, and they're basically tight clusters of white things that to me do look like petals, are surrounding a white stigma. There is a fruit there, and it can consist of several seeds. Now, the herbal actions, primarily, if you think of black cohosh, you think of menopause. And there's lots of reasons for that. They're all very valid. But these are the different qualities of black cohosh. It's an emmenagogue. An emmenagogue is something that enhances menstruation. And it does that through several methods. It can stimulate uterine contractions. It can alter your hormone levels, all sorts of different things. And it's not an abortifacient. That's a different type of herb. An emmenagogue is something that just enhances the regularity and helps with delayed menses. Basically, people who have irregular menstrual periods, this is your go-to herb. It also is an antispasmodic. That's why it's really good for certain types of premenstrual syndromes. It stops those cramps, but it also stops cramps all over the body. So it's very useful for that. It's also anti-inflammatory and anti-rheumatic. And that's why it's been used for arthritic pains, muscle pains, joint pains, all sorts of things like that. And it also has what we call alterative properties, which means it's just a very nourishing herb. There's really no drug name or action that is like an alterative. It's just a very nourishing herb. And it does tend to focus on both the liver as well as the female reproductive system. And one of the lovely qualities about this is it's a nervine, it's a relaxant nervine. And for those of us Women who are suffering through perimenopause and menopause, which you don't always have to suffer through that, but some of us do, or premenstrual syndrome, PMS, this is also a really good herb because it's a relaxing herb. And it also has hypotensive qualities, which means it helps lower blood pressure. But the big use and the reason why it's always in the top 10 sellers for botanical supplements is it's very good for perimenopause and menopause, specifically for helping to relieve uh, hot flashes. And for those women who suffer with hot flashes and they don't want to go on hormonal therapy, this is definitely an option. And regardless of what you read in some of the literature online, there is very good research and also just good all around consumer satisfaction and Yelp reviews on black cohosh for hot flashes. Now, this is one of the big chemical constituents of black cohosh, but there's all kinds of them. And what I find interesting about the different chemical constituents of black cohosh is they all have names that are related to both ways of classifying the Latin terms for this plant. So we have triterpene glycosides and simigenol, as you can see, simifugicide, simifugine, racemoside, cimiracemoside, isoferric acid. Okay, so there's some wonderful Scrabble words for you. And one of the ones that really helps relieve pain and stop spasms is salicylic acid. And that's the active constituent of aspirin as well as willow bark. And that's where the pain reliever part comes in. And there is a volatile oil, an essential oil, which can be distilled and sold as an essential oil. Now, how do you take this? Now, all alcohol extracts, and that's basically where they put the herb. And remember, it's the root that is the active constituent, where the medicinal part that's used of this plant. Alcohol extracts are the most potent form of the herb. That means most of the active constituent is taken out of the root with alcohol. You can take it as a tea and you need to boil it. Basically, that's how you get the stuff out of there, but it only gets about half of the active constituents out. So you can see in this slide, there's an extract powder. That's basically an alcohol extract that has been powdered, sort of like freeze-dried coffee. That's the best way to explain a powdered extract. There is also, you can take it in tincture form. The different capsules on the market. I'm a big fan of Gaia's Herbs. They're not a sponsor of this program. I just love their products. And it's basically because of the way they process the herbs. So you're getting a really good standard dose with these products. Now, there is an essential oil. I have never, ever seen this on the market. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I am very quick to remind everyone that I don't know everything. But you can get the essential oil of black cohosh, and you can use that in things like massage oils or with aroma acutherapy. It's very, very concentrated. So, maybe a drop in some tea or like a cup of warm water or something like that. Now, the research on black cohosh is interesting. Most scientific publications put out lengthy sentences that are obviously written by lawyers, which means the rest of us have a difficulty figuring out what exactly they're saying. But they basically say in certain ways, this could be extraordinarily deadly, but it's probably safe. It's like, well, what are you supposed to do with that information? But anyways, what I can say is Black Cohosh is consistently in the top 10 best-selling herbal supplements in North America and Europe. It's been used for centuries by Native Americans, probably thousands of years by Native Americans. So, you can make your own decision there. If you take it specifically for things like premenstrual syndrome or for menopausal and perimenopausal symptoms, I suggest taking a break every once in a while to see if you still need the herb. If your symptoms come back, obviously you still need the herb. But there's no like, oh my gosh, information on, people either jumping off of buildings after taking this or dying of some horrible disease. There are some, cautions associated with Black Cohosh. Um, a lot of times with herbal remedies and supplements, people talk about, the scientific research will come out and say, this will destroy your liver. And then when you read the research, the rats that are in the study have been stuffed with tons of herb, and for some reason, the rats die. Now, if people have liver problems, if you're a recovering alcoholic and you have terrible cirrhosis and you're waiting for a liver transplant, if you've suffered severe hepatitis, et cetera, sometimes certain herbs can make harm you. So this is where you talk to your physician, your pharmacist, and your licensed natural healthcare practitioner to see what would be your best option. The big caution that everybody can agree with is that you do not take this during pregnancy, especially in places where they're making all sorts of laws regarding fetal rights and female access to reproductive health care. In my clinical practice, as well as observation, the people that want their pregnancies always are more tend to lose them, and the people that don't want them can do all sorts of things and keep them. So, but don't take this during pregnancy. You may stimulate contractions. The big caution is with the essential oil, and this is not to be used with children, especially infants. Do not use it if you're pregnant. And don't use this undiluted. If you're going to use it in any way, you need to dilute it in oil. Let's say you want to take a bath, mix it in a bath oil. If you want to put it on your skin, mix it in a carrier oil like grapeseed or almond oil. So those are the big cautions with Black Cohosh. Now, the plant is really beautiful. I mean, I just think it's amazingly beautiful. And it seems to like, a little more of a, humid climate. It grows well in, shaded areas, partial sun, full sun. And I have personally never grown it, but, it's obviously a wild plant and does quite well in certain areas. I do think, even though I have not grown this plant, it is not suggested to grow this in a container garden. I don't think most pots could handle a 10-foot tall flower. But that's me. If you want to prove me wrong, good for you. So if you intend to use this for medicine, you need to keep in mind that you have to sacrifice the entire plant since the medicinal part is in the root. So those are the only cautions. And as always, I have seed sources and growing guides in the program notes if you want to start using this plant in your garden. So however you want to use this incredible gift of nature, For women who are suffering from menopausal and perimenopausal symptoms, this plant is seen as a miracle, and that's why it's used. And it's also very effective at helping relieve these symptoms. And this is why the plant is always in the top 10 sellers, at least in North America and Europe. Or if you want some really tall, beautiful flowers in your garden, this would also be lovely. But however you want to use this plant, I hope you come to appreciate what an incredible gift from nature that black cohosh, whatever Latin binomial you want to use for this, is for all of us. So this is Stephanie Georgia saying thank you so much for spending your valuable time with me. Don't forget to check out the links in the program notes. And until next time, be well.